Welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me, as he always is Mr. Matt Disher. Matt, how are you today, sir? You're in the new office. It looks fantastic.
Finally in the new office. No more orange walls and SpongeBob behind me. Thank you. I appreciate it. This was my wife's Christmas present to me. So
awesome.
It took a little while to get started. The guy that did it is an excellent craftsman. If anybody sits in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening or watching, and you need some work done like this, I am happy to share this guy's information because he's going to do some more work for us. I'll share his information once we get him scheduled.
After your stuff's complete, yes. Okay,
exactly. If you haven't tried to schedule any work done in your house or any contractors as of late, it becomes virtually impossible to get anybody even to come out and give you a quote or a bid. But then beyond that, once they give you the bid and you say, yeah, thumbs up, they are booked 4 to 6 months out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's a busy season for them. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, the room looks fantastic. Like you said, you're still moving in. You still got plenty of stuff to put there on the shelves, so you'll get those all filled out. But
yeah, I'm a bit of a minimalist, so I don't think it's going to get too crowded here. But there are still some things. I think some of the things that we have on the shelves back here were things that were left over in the office anyway, so we threw them back up there. But I've got a few more books up there, and we'll move some decor around. But it is what it needs to be. I don't know if you can tell. It's kind of bright in here, but there are lights. The contractor installed rope lights, or I'm sorry, LED strips, and they're behind. I'm trying to point on reverse here. They're behind this piece. Yeah. On both sides of the cabinet, so I can change those colors. I can make them blue. Right now they're blue. I can make them red. I can make them orange, yellow, whatever. So that'll be kind of interesting, as we go. I'm going to get some new blinds installed. So the lights are in fact like
you can have an ominous look. You can have a happy, right, a bright look.
Right. If I'm going for the I'm serious look, I'll turn all the lights red and be like, hello.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm really excited about it. It smells like a new house in here because the room has been renovated. But it's a good deal. It's a good setup.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures you were posting online. I that's where I saw it. I can see a little bit of the blue hue right now, but yeah, if you definitely had some darker blinds, it would probably show the light a little bit better.
We'll get it all put together, and then it'll look super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new office. I also just happen to be wearing my one of the Valentine's Day gifts the wife got me. It's a American since 1776 shirt from the Till Valhalla Project.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt. So
yeah,
figured I'd break that out for today.
Yep.
It's just Matt and I this week. We're gonna have a little bit of fun. We're gonna go over some news. We're gonna talk about some topics, and especially right now, one of the big topics is going after realistic opportunities. We're kind of in this trend right now where the unemployment rate's a little high, so you have the job market flooded with job seekers. So people that maybe normally would be searching out for 70, 80,000, 100,000 plus are searching for that next tier down. So it makes the competition a little bit higher, a little bit harder. So talking about chasing those realistic opportunities and not, hey, I'm fresh out of the Army as an E5. I need $150,000 a year. Well,
right.
What's your extremely awesome skill that we'll pay you for?
That's not realistic.
I was just talking about some sports figure the other day at work with somebody, and they said about what they got paid, a couple of millions of dollars a year. And I said, I would love to be that good at one thing that somebody's like, I'll give you millions of dollars a year to do this. Sadly, that's not how it goes.
That happens when hundreds of millions of people want to watch what you do,
yeah.
and then there are companies who want to endorse you. So that's I mean, really anybody can get there. I watch videos on YouTube where these guys make video, like they're out camping, and they are sponsored by 6 or 8 different companies, and their new $80,000 off-road vehicle is something that they purchased through their sponsorships, and so. It can very well happen. We can all get there. It's just a matter of it's the same thing as when your children are playing football when they're 6 years old. Less than 1% of them will ever end up in the NFL, but no less, still a valuable skill set, still a valuable team environment to play on. But
well, with that being said, if anybody wants to watch me camp, I'll live stream the next time I go camping. It's going to be a lot of me hanging out by a fire, cooking meats and eggs in the morning. Maybe going swimming.
Taking tactical naps.
Yeah, tactical naps, which we're going to talk about here shortly. But I'm also going to forget the cameras on me, so you might catch me like scratching myself, really stretching out there by the fire. So,
yeah. But I mean, why wouldn't somebody want to pay for that, right?
It's just, hey, if you can make something like camping exciting and people want to watch that, more power. I personally, especially when I'm camping, I mean, I don't camp that often, but when I go camping, I look at camping as I'm out away from everything. It's time to unwind and relax. I'm not trying to turn that into a, hey, let's put on a show.
No, I'm going to build a fire.
Yeah.
Watch me build this fire. Yeah.
I'm just going to break out. I'm just going to break out the propane torch and
singing show tunes while you're doing it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. With some tap shoes on and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'd watch it though.
I appreciate that, Mr.
I'd watch it. Yep.
I will say, you had your office done. It looks fantastic.
Thanks.
I've been extremely busy myself. Like I'm in a new chair here. That wasn't supposed to show up till Monday.
Oh.
Showed up last Friday. So I put my new office chair together. It's fancy. It feels good so far. But the wife also wanted to get some home renovations done herself.
Yep.
So she said, hey, let's do some home renovations, which God love her meant, hey, I want you to do some home renovations. So,
I want you to do them.
Which
you do the work.
She wanted some new toilets. We had a back and forth. It was essentially me saying, these toilets work just fine. Why do we need new toilets? She goes, because I want them. All right. She wins. So I put 2 new toilets in, a new vanity, sink, mirror. She had me working most of the weekend, but I am very happy we got it done. It looks very good. Not nearly as good as those shelves. I'll tell you, I don't think I could do that. Those shelves would not be level. Your books would be falling. Like that, but.
I said the same thing. If I had to do this myself, it wouldn't look the way it looks right now.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, it's flawless. I mean, I say that because you find contractors, and like I had a guy do my basement a few years ago, and he did a good job. Mm-hmm. It was better than I could do, but there were some little things that we had to keep fixing and stuff like that. But this is flawless. I mean, there's nothing. I couldn't have imagined it coming out even better.
No, Mrs. Disher did a fantastic job there.
She did a fantastic job in having the idea and virtually nothing else. She in hiring a contractor.
I was going to did she hired them, correct?
She did. Okay. Yeah, she went out and found them. We keep she and I joke around about this because she's like, well, you can thank me later. I'm like, thank you for what? You hired a guy.
That always gets me on those like I think SNL did a sketch on this recently of those car commercials where you see somebody buy their significant other a car for Christmas. And in the commercials, everybody's like, oh, thank you. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Just what I wanted.
Right.
In real life, the husband or the wife would be like, how much did that cost? Like,
you just made a $40,000 investment without my knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
There's one where the guy gives the girl a puppy and the girl whistles and this big new truck comes pulling out of the woods in the snow. And they're like, that's a $65,000 vehicle. Like, who's paying that bill?
Yeah.
Like,
in real life, unless you're a one person earner in the family, like if the husband bought it for the wife and he's the one making all the money and she doesn't have an income and he's making so much money that they don't have to think about it, then okay.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's not 99% of American families, right? So
like, who's making that $550 a month payment? Like,
right.
Plus the insurance. Like, what?
Right.
What are you doing?
Without any consultation of your family members.
Yeah.
We don't have anything else to pay for, do we?
Yeah. Right. Are we homeless now? Do we live in the truck?
Right. Yeah. Actually, honey, I sold the house and the kids.
Yeah. Oh God. Let's get over to military.com. There was some there's always the serious news. But the first one that popped out to both of us, we both kind of individually brought it up before the show started today, was the headline reads, Tactical Naps, Caffeine Jolts. Military sleep study recommends new policy for better troop rest. I'm going to start by saying, breaking news? Really?
I've always thought about this too. And I know, I talk about when I realistically think about military service, if you look at the first couple of days of the Iraq invasion, for example, in 2003, dudes weren't sleeping for days. And there wasn't this option like, all right, everybody, we're going to stop this this long haul into Baghdad. We're going to stop and take some naps. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
People were crashing cars and vehicles and tanks because they were falling asleep at the wheel. And that's, my experience from the Marine Corps too, is that if we're running an op, you're not getting time to sleep. It doesn't matter. Now, on a larger scale, I've seen this conversation happening a lot lately. For people, professionals, not in the military, but professionals out in the workforce, that you have to have 7 or 8 hours of sleep. You'll be more effective, less anxiety, less stress, et cetera, et cetera. And we've known that for a long time, but I just don't think it's realistic in certain elements of the armed forces. And perhaps I'm just skewed because we were combat arms. We weren't getting sleep. We weren't getting any of this stuff. Tactical naps happened when you showed up at 04 on the grinder to wait for the trucks that weren't going to come until 9 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and then in between the random stuff where they tell you, all right, everybody get up and let's count socks. Why are we counting socks? We're not we got to make sure your packs are all put together.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, you'd be taking a nap. You'd have Marines laying all over the concrete, using their packs as pillows. And I know that anybody who has been in that situation is listening to this and grinning fiercely behind their computer, because we all did it. Anytime we got a chance to sit down and take a nap, you did. But I don't know how a sleep study really affects like combat operations. You're not sleeping in combat.
Well, I understand, especially in the basic training, combat training, things of that nature, or operations that certain groups will do. You need to make it as lifelike as possible. So there's that. Hey, guess what? Everybody's asleep. It's 3 a.m. Bad guy Charlie don't care. He's coming in. He's shooting that artillery. He's machine gunning at you. He's got his tanks rolling in. There is no, hey, hold on, we're still sleeping. No, it's you got to get up and move. So they would cut your sleep short. They would see how people reacted and could work under, sleep deprivation and things of that nature. Now, again, a lot of these numbers were taken from deployed service members on this study. So you have to remember, a lot of these people aren't in, the nicest of conditions. They're not in the safest of places. I'm not trying to make excuses and say that this is okay. I do understand that sleep is good for your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and things of that nature, but there's also sacrifices to be made, and that's
right.
Kind of what these people signed up for. Now, the study showed that 86% of Army personnel in Afghanistan reported sleeping less than 7 hours per night. Not bad. This one didn't, really strike me as odd or different. Okay, yeah, getting 7 to 6.5 hours sleep. Okay. Air Force personnel reported an average sleep time of 6.7 hours per night. I love how the Air Force had like almost an exact time. Like they all had like a smartwatch on monitoring their sleep patterns. Like airmen normally get to REM sleep about 45 minutes into slumber. Like,
or that they're getting less sleep than the other branches.
Yeah. Well, it said sleeping the Army said sleeping less than 7. So 6.7 is probably about that number, I'd say.
It's about the same. It's very precise, but yeah. Because I'm pretty sure that during operations in the Marine Corps, we were getting 2.5 to 3. Let's be precise. I'm thinking around 2.74 to be precise.
Yeah.
2.74.
Yeah, 7.3, 7.4, somewhere in that. Yeah.
These are like explosives calculations. Yeah. Like, 2.75,
Yeah.
P equals plenty.
Yeah, just add one more stick.
Let's just make sure.
Of those Air Force personnel, 15% of them reported sleeping less than 4.5 hours a night. Another study showed Navy personnel in Afghanistan showed an average sleep time of 5.9 hours a night. So the Navy sleeping even less, with 67% reporting less than 7 hours per night. But then you go down to the next paragraph. These results are consistent with other studies. Marine Corps personnel demonstrated that 50% of deployed service members report sleeping 5 hours or less.
Yep.
So
sounds about
more than half of the Marine Corps is like 4 hours. Let's go.
But to be exact, it's 3.849. Repeating. It makes sense that the Navy sleeps less also, because in my experience, I
the
was
Marines are keeping them up. Got it.
because the Marines are keeping explosions, helicopters, gunfire, wrestling matches.
Yeah.
I mean, when I spent time on the with the Boxer ARG, I was on the 11th MEU. I was on the USS Harper's Ferry and the Boxer and the Cleveland, which is now retired. I did come to realize that oftentimes we had downtime. The Marines had downtime on the ship while we were underway. So we'd be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf or the Indian Ocean or something like that, just steaming along. We'd have a few days of transportation time where we weren't making any stops, and the Navy had to run these different watch shifts. And so some of these guys were, cooking food during the day, and then at night they were on like a firefighting shift, or they were, they had a watch in the front of the ship to make sure they weren't running over any fishing vessels or something along those lines. And of course, if anybody in the Navy is listening to this, I could be way off with whatever it was that they were doing. That was my perception. They were standing watch with binoculars around the ship. And that was their secondary job. And then they'd go to sleep for 8 hours and wake up and do the whole thing over again. So it wasn't like a regular work day where they'd go to work for 8 or 9 hours a day. They would run essentially 2 jobs on a ship while you're underway. So I still want to know what a tactical nap is. Does it explain that?
It does explain that here. I was going to read the research found that while some troops may suffer from insomnia, they commonly have what's known as behavioral induced insufficient sleep syndrome. I never heard of that until this article. I get that you're in a high-paced environment. Let's be honest, nicotine, caffeine are some of the things that fuel. At least I know Marines. I'm assuming most service members.
What?
Caffeine, nicotine, and occasionally just a drop or two of alcohol. But yeah, they're also saying that lifestyle choices such as watching television or playing video games late into the night may also kind of induce some of these sleeping patterns. Coffee and energy drinks and medication can be useful for counterbalancing fatigue, but they can also contribute to sleep deprivation, especially when consumed within a 6-hour window. Honestly, I was not a huge caffeine guy during my days of service. I will say that I'm much more of a caffeine junkie today. Just being older and, naturally more tired. I want to curl up, with a nice pillow and blanket. I'll say that caffeine is definitely much more of a friend today than it was back then. But back then, they had ephedrine in these fun little pills you could buy at gas stations.
Right.
And those worked wonders. Which essentially was the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you, and I don't use nicotine anymore, but back then, so bear in mind when we're talking about all this, these are like, when they're talking about people staying up late playing video games, not getting enough sleep, these are 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I mean, that's like I forget what the average age of the total U.S. Armed Forces are, but these are young men and women in their college ages in many cases. And not only do they have tough jobs or demanding jobs, but then they have to, they want to also have a little bit of a social life on the side. I didn't really start drinking coffee until I was in the Marines. But if I distinctly remember doing our trip to Australia for a month and a half, and I was on a fire watch. I was on a guard. I was guarding an airfield during like live operations, and they were launching and recovering aircraft there. And I was on the night shift. So during the day, I wanted to go out and see Australia. And then at night, I had to stand there with a rifle and a teammate. And this is the other weird thing. I would shine my flashlight around this airfield in the middle of the night. And I one time turned around and there were 400 kangaroos standing behind me, and they were all standing up on their hind legs. And it looked like a bunch of guys standing in this field. And that's like what my mind processed at first was a bunch of men with no shirts on standing in this field behind me. If anybody's seen kangaroos, they are almost human-like in the dark. It's very strange. Anyway, but it was Rippets, and we used to have a little drinks, the little not 5-hour energies. It was like the precursor to that, which were just flat out drugs, I think. And we were taking the pills and the drinks to stay awake because you had to. And I can't tell you how many caffeine-induced anxiety attacks I would have at 3:00 in the morning while I'm standing in the middle of this airfield with a loaded weapon, guarding millions of dollars of aircraft. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we get these. I know some of these younger guys at like my place of employment. They try a Monster energy drink or a Rockstar energy drink for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, I can only drink like half one of those." I'm like, "Oh, come on!" You gotta. I'm like, "What are you talking about?
Those are
You
those are
pop
rookie
like
numbers.
4 or 5 pills and then
Right.
slam 2 of those.
Right.
You're up for about half,
Yeah.
a day and a half." But
Yeah. Well, so this is the other thing I found out, that those things are horrible for you, obviously.
yes, they're very, very, very bad. Yes.
But then I went to a doctor years ago because I was having some heartburn, and they asked me do I consume pop, soda, whatever. And I said, no, but I drink a lot of coffee. And they said, well, that coffee can cause heartburn because it's acidic, but coffee is actually good. Regular coffee drinkers have a lower instance of colon cancer and other diseases. And coffee is one of the best things you can consume for your liver.
No.
So when people are like, I drink too much coffee, obviously everything in moderation. If you go suck down a pot of coffee, you're going to have a heart attack. But coffee is legit. I mean, we were dipping coffee grinds out of the MREs sometimes. You pull a little Folgers pack out of there and just stuff them in your lip because you had to stay awake for another 24 hours.
Yeah.
And if you've ever fallen asleep with real dip in your mouth, it's not fun to swallow Kodiak or Copenhagen or anything like that. The stuff, it's so disgusting thinking about it. But I mean, back in the day, that was how we stayed awake for days on end.
Yeah, absolutely. So you asked what tactical naps are.
Yeah.
The recommendation includes allowing time for tactical naps. They are 20 minutes followed by a jolt of caffeine when periods of sleep deprivation are required due to operational necessity. So maybe if it's a training exercise, you're hour 25 into this training exercise. Hey, everybody bed down quick. We're gonna chill for 20 minutes. Let everybody get a 20-minute nap, wake up, maybe bang out a 5-hour energy quick, or a shot of coffee, something like that. The next topic is allowing time for sleep banking, sleeping extra hours before a planned exercise. So if you know you're going to go on a training exercise and the idea is, hey, we're going to be up for 26, 28 hours, something like that. Hey, we're going to get a nice 10 hours of rest the night before we go out and do this. So everybody is fresh when they start it. Hopefully everybody uses that 10 hours appropriately. You would have some, young PFC or Lance Corporal that's going to drink that night before and have no sleep. And then they have to then try to stay up for another 28 on top of it.
I don't know why I'm so tired.
They're going to show up at 04 already sleep deprived.
So like sleep banking. And I tried that a few times. I didn't call it that. I didn't call it anything, but I'm like, I'm going to get some extra sleep because we're going to be awake doing whatever operation we're doing. We're flying out to somewhere tomorrow.
Yep.
That never worked for me because it would actually be the opposite. So tactical naps wouldn't have worked for me either because I lay in bed for like an hour thinking about stuff and thinking about what's happening tomorrow. But in this case, sleep banking for 10 hours, I'd spend an hour and a half laying in bed thinking about executing tomorrow. Like whenever we go to the rifle range, for example, on qual day, I would lay in bed and visualize my qualification.
Yeah.
Shooting.
Picture the targets.
Right. High winds tomorrow. We're going to have 30-mile-an-hour winds, and I'm going to have to shoot in that and qualify expert. But then I'd always wake up early, and I still do that today. If I have something big coming up in the day and I have my alarm set for 7 a.m., no, I wake up at 5:30.
Yeah.
And I can't get back to sleep because I'm ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sleep banking in my world does not work.
I completely agree with you. When I have a big event going on, you and I sound like the same deal, especially on the rifle range. The night before, I'm in my head, in my mind's eye, I am envisioning those targets. I'm envisioning the round target. I'm envisioning the silhouettes. I'm envisioning me sitting in the positions, in the prone, in the sitting, in the kneeling, and the standing.
Right.
I can see those open sights. I was going through that and working through it mentally before the next day I had to physically execute. But yeah, the same deal. Still today, if there's a big event coming up, even last year, I think the 1.5K for whatever reason, I wanted to perform well for this. I prepared all that good stuff, but the night before, when I should be getting my sleep, so I wake up ready to go and I get a nice healthy, energy boosting breakfast in, and then I go hammer this 5K out. The night before, I'm just laying there like, okay. Gotta go to sleep. And then
left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Keep going.
you put that pressure on yourself, and then, that even makes it worse. And then, I'm like, okay, I finally am starting to doze off. I'm going to get some good rest. and then I'm up 2 hours, before I
Right.
wanted to be, and I'm like,
Yep.
what was the point?
Yep. So my mom taught at University of Cincinnati, and we would talk about this quite a bit because this is a lesson that I use for my son too when he goes to play basketball or baseball, and he's 10. Is visualizing the success, visualizing
Mhm.
what you have to do, and my mom and I would talk about this because she'd teach this to students, and it's visualizing your testing the next day. In her case, or in our case, in the military, it was the endless repeated dry runs. So if we were going to execute an operation on a building or a series of buildings, we would tape those buildings out on the ground and practice walking through the door and button hooking and crossing and limited penetration into the room and clearing rooms and pieing off windows. And you do that over and over and over again to the point where you'd go to bed thinking about, all right, I'm the 2-man. I'm going to go, I'm crossing the room. My first guy is going to button hook. I'm crossing, button hook, cross, button hook, cross. And you do this stuff over and over and over again. Anybody who's done urban warfare, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you do this stuff over and over again, and then you think about it and think about it and think about it. And there's an element of visualizing your successes. Again, I think the last time that I qualified on the rifle range was in Okinawa, and there was a tropical storm, and it was raining, and it was really windy, and the wind was coming in sideways, and I still qualified expert. And it was because I laid in bed the night before to a fault. I was extremely tired the next day, which probably didn't help me. But I laid there to a fault thinking about windage at 300 yards and 500 yards, like thinking about if the wind's blowing like this and it's,
Yeah.
during a tropical storm, it's 10 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 10 miles, 30 miles. You got to adjust to those things and then pull the trigger accordingly.
Well, you like you said, it's that mental rep. So you've put yourself in that situation. So you have a reference point to lean back on.
Right.
So yeah, the next one here, directing leadership to a duty schedule that allows for 8 hours of sleep for those under their command. Good luck. Giving service members a location that is quiet and promotes restful sleep when possible. That's called the barracks.
Right.
Also, good luck. It's not always the most peaceful place in the world. Sometimes the barracks gets a little rowdy.
We had drums in our room.
Yes.
Jimmy Purcell and I had drums that we'd play.
There's people with drums. There's always that guy that wants to have the biggest surround sound system.
Yep.
That would make somebody that makes $20 million per movie kind of blush, but they have it in this small little barracks room and it's just pounding through everybody's walls.
Right.
People out in the car, the courtyard, somebody out in the parking lot working on their cars, things like that. It's not a peaceful environment.
But again, this is, these are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. It is probably not unlike any other environment where you cram a bunch of people of the same age into a building. You're going to have some actors. And frankly, I think we did a pretty good job. I would say we did a pretty good job after 10 o'clock, after 2200, things would shut down. And if they didn't, you always had that overly aggressive, it was never me. You always had that overly aggressive NCO kicking doors down, like, turn off your music.
I was right across the hall from Purcell's room. I never remember you guys bothering me with the drums late at night.
I think that I don't think we played them late at night, except for on the weekends, occasionally. But I think who we really bothered were the people above us and below us. And, at this time, Purcell and I were both corporals in a barracks full of E2s and E3s. So, you'd have every once in a while, you'd have the Lance Corporal who would show up with, he got a little bit of courage and he'd be like, hey, can you guys turn that down? But the problem was when the officer day would show up and it'd be like, hey, who's got the drums? And we'd either fess up to it or we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Usually we would, and we'd be like, no, but we haven't been playing. And they'd be like, all right, guys, just keep it down. Cause they didn't want to come up there and start slashing bodies. They were like, listen, I was taking a tactical nap and I was interrupted by this phone call. There's drums in the barracks.
So I had to take a jolt of coffee and come
right. So I pounded my Rip It or whatever. And then, and now I'm on my way. So,
a couple more points to this one. We can move on. Recognizing that caffeine does not make up for sleep deprivation. That is true, but it helps. Giving air crews extra time off to adjust their internal clocks after traveling across multiple time zones. This one makes sense, especially if you're going to travel over multiple time zones and then be staying there for a little while. That first day, especially, maybe giving them, hey, take whatever time you need. You got 24 hours. Figure it out. Get your body adjusted. But then we expect you to be ready to go tomorrow. Training health professionals to recognize the symptoms of sleep deprivation and allow them to intervene when members exhibit symptoms of lack of sleep And then the last one, providing military members with mobile applications to allow them to personally review and manage their sleep time. So I kind of brought that up earlier with the sleep trackers on phones, on watches, on things of that nature these days. I guess that's a way they could do it as well. I know personally, I want to say it was MCT, combat training, after boot camp. We were on a hike, and I was falling asleep standing up hiking, man. It's just kind of the way it goes. You were that tired, you were that worn out that you kind of nod off for a second, you're back to it, and just keep on going.
I had this conversation recently on LinkedIn. Somebody was talking about sleep in the military, and I commented that they asked the question on LinkedIn, where was the strangest place you ever fell asleep? And I said, I am 99% sure, because it's a little foggy in my memory. In Parris Island during boot camp, after the Crucible, we were returning from the Crucible. And, for anybody listening that doesn't know what the Crucible is, it's essentially like 2.5 days, 3 days of
54 hours.
Yeah, it's team operations. You don't sleep, in particular, or you get a couple hours of sleep. But I pulled Firewatch on the time that we were supposed to sleep, so then I got less sleep. And once you're awake and moving in those types of environments, then it becomes hard to fall asleep. Like your body goes on autopilot, and you're just kind of pushing and pushing. Anyway, at the end, you're doing a 5-mile hump with all your gear on back to the grinder where you receive your Eagle Globe and Anchor. They call you a Marine for the first time, and we were hiking, we were humping. I looped my finger. I grabbed the guy's pack in front of me and just kind of like, I was like, I'm just going to stay in a straight line. Cause I was having trouble staying in a straight line. Cause I was so tired. And it was dark out. And the next thing you know, it's like I open my eyes and it's light out and we're done walking. Somehow I skipped like 3 miles of this thing. And I don't know what happened.
You kind of essentially blacked out.
Blacked out, went on autopilot. I think I fell asleep. I don't remember walking. I don't remember any of it. And then we were done. And I was like, hey, that's an ideal situation. It's kind of like putting like your Tesla on autopilot and just like kicking back, and then suddenly you're at work,
It'd be nice if we could have done that for like the whole 12 weeks,
Right.
13 weeks. Just
show
up. I remember I was on Yellow Footprints, and the next thing I know, they're handing me the Eagle Globe and Anchor. It's pretty sweet.
They're like, why are you not standing at attention properly? Like, because I don't remember learning that.
Yeah. I'm sure it's somewhere in there. I just Do
you have a video refresher that I can watch? A crash course.
Yeah. Actually, you've been back to Parris Island since graduating boot camp.
A few times. I've taken my son too. Yeah.
No, awesome. In October, the wife for her 40th birthday wants to do a trip. She wants to go down to Memphis. She's a big Elvis fan. So, which by the way, that is very expensive, Graceland. So
yeah, I haven't been there,
but we're gonna go down there in October, hopefully for her birthday. And I figure, hey, let's just cut across, go over, hit Parris Island up. I've been down to South Carolina plenty of times. I've just never made the extra couple miles to get down to Parris Island since being there.
It's a little off the beaten path.
Yeah.
We vacation in Hilton Head from time to time, and I know a lot of people go down to Hilton Head or to that area, and it is literally on the map. It's the next island north of Hilton Head.
You have to come out and then back in.
Right. And it's all swamps and everything. For anybody who's been there, it's all swampy. So like the highways are built where they could build on solid land. But so from Hilton Head over to the gate of Parris Island, I think it's about an hour.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, which, it's worth it to go back. It looks a little bit different now. I mean, I went through there in 2000. It looks different now. There are some stuff looks the same. Like I remember, hey, I got all my vaccines in that building, and that's where BAS was, and those are my barracks. But then like 3rd Battalion,
it's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. 3rd Battalion was being torn down last time I was there, and I don't know where they were relocating it. Nor did my mind process where it was or like how we got there. Because when I first showed up to boot camp, I was in 1st Battalion. We had to walk through the woods to get to 3rd Battalion's chow hall. That's where we ate every meal. And when you drive on the roads to 3rd Battalion, I have no idea how to get there. But I could cut through the woods and tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
It's so strange. Like the layout of the island is different when you're driving a car.
I was going to say, Matt, your entire traveling around that island for the 3 months you were there was on foot. So you can get everywhere on foot.
Yeah.
As far as vehicles go, man.
Right. And when you get in a car, you don't realize how small that place is. Like when you're on foot, the place is huge. You're like, oh, we're on the grinder, and then we're going to walk over to the rifle range, and the rifle range is like, we're going to take buses there. But then when you get in a car, the rifle range is right around the corner.
Mhm.
you know, and then there's golf courses and other stuff on that island where it's like, you didn't get exposure to that because they didn't
Yeah.
want it to
Yeah.
seem normal. But
Yeah,
I never realized that Paris Island was right next to Hilton Head. I'm like, wow, two wonderful places right next to each other.
yes.
You know, here I am.
One just luxurious as you could possibly imagine, and the other a tourist destination. You
Right.
know?
Both tropical paradise.
Yes.
But it is like I vacation at Hilton Head, and it's like my favorite place to visit. And then right next door was
Imagine if the Marine Corps decided they wanted to sell Paris Island, the money they could get from some developers.
man.
You know?
Yeah. But you just like the same though, you're gonna have to get rid of the sand fleas because I don't care what you the Hollywood Marines say. I'll do the hills. I'll take the hills.
Mhm.
I'll do the hills all over again. I hated standing in formation and getting eaten by sand fleas.
Yeah,
I hated it.
It's a mental torture. It really is.
Right.
It drives you absolutely insane.
Yep.
Yeah. So Matt, what you had a fun article you pulled up.
Well, I mean, reasonably, and I don't know why this is taking so long to get here, but more military exchange locations are going to get tattoo studios. 100 years late, I guess,
Yeah.
but we've talked about all the hubbub in the military that the tattoo issues that they were having over the years, like different policies, different leadership and commandants and things like that would come in and change tattoo policies, and then suddenly, like in the Marines at least, there was this period of time where you couldn't have tattoos on certain parts of your body, which blew my mind because every devil dog I knew had like neck tattoos and full sleeves and sleeves on sleeves, and that was part of the culture. Same with the sailors. And so I don't know what the policy is now. I didn't look it up, but I think it's interesting that they're just now getting tattoo studios inside of a PX. So I don't know, Tim, you're talking about like you'd stop by there to get a couple of things and then stop.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few tattoos myself. I think the last tattoo I got while I was in the service was actually in Okinawa. It wasn't the brightest of ideas. A bunch of us went out drinking the one night, and they had a Harley bar. A bar there in Okinawa, and it just turns out that they did tattoos in the back.
I'm pretty sure I got one there too.
Yeah, you, myself, I believe Robin Hardy, all the same night.
Yeah, we all did it.
Got some tattoos in the back of the Harley Davidson bar in Okinawa.
That's actually my best tattoo.
Okay,
I mean, it really is. So like, in terms of like shading and lines, like that dude did a really good job.
In retrospect, I mean, I don't have any weird diseases that I know of from it. So yeah, but I don't know if nearly 40-year-old Tim would do that again.
Yeah.
At that location, the artist was fine.
Right.
But plenty of service members are going to go get ink done somewhere. So why not offer it on base? Yeah, it's one of those, if you're going to do it here, do it at home, essentially.
Right.
That way we can make sure things are on the up and up. But yeah, imagine being that E2 that's like, you know what? I need my Copenhagen, my Copenhagen. I need my beer for the week. I probably need some new boot polish, some starch for my camis. Might as well grab some chevrons while I'm here. And you know what? I'm gonna go get that neck tattoo that I've wanted.
I'm gonna get my girlfriend's name.
Yeah. Or I love mom on the shoulder.
Right. Later on, you're gonna regret this, and you're gonna get it crossed out.
Yeah. You're gonna have some weird like tiger that covers it up later. But also there's the plus side to it of possibly, you have that E2 that thinks, hey, I got my chevrons, I got my beer, I got my dip, I got, all that stuff. I'm going to get a tattoo. And, his corporal walks by. Hey, Johnson, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
What are you thinking? Don't do that. Don't do that. No.
Don't waste your money on that. You already have a 30% interest rate on your car loan.
Yes. You went out
on your Camaro.
Yeah. And you went out and bought this car that has 340,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
From a local dealership that's taking it right out of your check.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
Yep. Yep. So some of these are, in the story, it looks like Fort Bragg, Lejeune, maybe Fort Hood are mentioned, Fort Bliss, but it's American Tattoo Society. Apparently, they're opening these stores. They're going to open these tattoo parlors inside of these exchange locations, which would be interesting. But I think you're right. Instead of going out to the shady guy down the street in the alleyway in whatever country or city you're in, go to the base, because they're probably going to have a little bit more, different rules around how they operate. probably
I'm sure
cleaner.
there's going to be people that enforce and ensure that they are keeping up to certain standards, for cleanliness and health purposes. But you're also going to have that, every 2 weeks that place is going to get flooded, essentially.
Right.
You know,
You
that
probably
every
have to
2 week
sign up for an
payday.
appointment.
I was going to say, yeah, if you're
Yeah.
smart, set up your appointment for the non-payday week.
Right.
Hey, we're getting paid on the 1st, so set me up for the 7th. I'm going to come in. You'll be in there with maybe 2 other people all day long because
Yeah.
nobody else is going to have their money.
Yeah. Right. Now, I think in true military fashion, maybe they have a guy standing in there in like a Smokey the Bear hat, and he's, the E3 walks in like, I'd like to get a tattoo. Like, no, you don't. No,
Yeah.
go back and don't get it there. Get it here. You can't get it on your arm. You got to get it on your shoulder. It's like the drill instructor salesperson.
That, and like you said, you didn't look them up. I'm not 100% sure what the current tattoo policy is, but I'm willing to bet that these places, these locations, will only do tattoos that fit inside those boundaries.
Probably.
Obviously, I would imagine that there's still no face tattoos, that there's, certain things that can't be tattooed. So they're going to say, hey, that's great. You want that? We can't tell you not to, but we're not going to do it.
Right.
Hey, that's great. You want this here? That's fantastic. Again, we're not the place. So,
and I think that one of the big differences here from when we were serving and what's happened over the years is that tattoos have gotten away from being this strange outsider societal thing, and now it's like a societal norm. Like, people have tattoos, professionals have tattoos. And I don't, it has evolved over time. It used to be, was there a commercial I recently saw? I think that's what it was, where it might have been one of those when you become your parents commercials, like you realize you become your parents, and they're talking about tattoos in the living room, like during a Christmas party. And the one lady's like, oh, so you want to be unemployed for the rest of your life? Like, that was the stigma that tattoos had. Right. And to a certain extent, if you have, you know what I mean, depending on where you're getting them, that's probably going to be a hindrance. But especially in military culture and in professional culture, I know a lot of professionals that have tattoos all over the place. It doesn't change their performance at work. They're still just as good, if not better, than anybody else. So getting past that stigma, the military is the place to do that. I mean, a lot of these folks, they want to chronicle their experiences, and that's what we do. I have a Marine Corps tattoo on my body, so you don't have to see it unless I show it to you, but shouldn't be negatively stigmatized.
Absolutely. And I'll say that it's, when you see a very good tattoo, it is truly artwork. There's those tattoo shows on TV nowadays, and those would always kind of capture my attention. Anything that has to do with art, essentially, would capture my attention, but these especially. I'm a fan of tattoos. I'm not covered in them. I have 5, but if someone can do that, because I can barely draw a stick figure that looks like a stick figure. So anybody can do some sort of art, especially on another person, is going to be permanent. And it's something that they actually wanted. I mean, that blows me away. And I love to see really good tattoos. So,
right.
I would imagine that these tattoo artists in these, places, like, just say you said Lejeune, I bet the tattoo artists at this place in Lejeune are going to get really, really, really good at doing eagle open anchors. I mean, they're probably going to do. It's going to be like McDonald's cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Come in. Oh, another.
Well, it'll be like the barber shop where you go in and ask for a certain haircut, and they can only do one haircut.
We do the high and tight.
Can you give me an eagle open anchor that looks like this? So like, no,
one better. Give you that one that I've done 3,000 times.
Right, yeah. It's a stencil. They just put it on there, and
you walk in, they just slap it on your arm, color it in. See ya. Next guy, slap it.
Done. So. Yeah. So, but you're right. They probably will get really good at that, and like bulldogs and the different unit logos. But you're right. And all the better. Again, these are young men and women who have a little bit of money to spend. Let them go get their tattoos.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit something about the topics we kind of discussed last night. The one we both kind of agreed on was realistic opportunities. So, I'm E4, E5, 23 years old, getting out of the service. I don't have any college credits. I'm entering the professional workforce. obviously I still want to go be a Major League Baseball player. That's not realistic. I can't do that. So what's next? Maybe I want to be a CEO. No, can't do that. Like what are realistic in your opinion, what are realistic opportunities for somebody just getting out of the service? Let's just kind of use our background. We were of a certain age, didn't have the college education. What would have a realistic opportunity look like for us?
Podcasting. I'm kidding. I kid.
We've made it, Matt. We've made it. We've done it. Here we are.
We are here. We do this for free. It's volunteerism. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. The skilled trades piece is always a reality for anybody. Right now, skilled trades jobs, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, etc. Those are jobs that are in high demand. They're not going anywhere. There's a shortage of people. There are unions that will train you. There are skilled trade schools that will train you. Anybody can go to sign up and use your GI Bill to go into one of these trade schools and learn a trade and make a pretty decent paycheck without owing a ton of student loan debt. Secondarily, I'd say if you're coming out of the military right now and you are, in E4, E5, let's say that you have not obtained a degree quite yet, get a degree that's going to be useful. And I'm not trying to dig on anybody's degree choices or anything like that, but there's a big conversation happening around, again, student loan debt and jobs that earn money. And so people go after college degrees that in some cases are what they are interested in, but do not have a good return in terms of a well-paying job on the back end. And I'm not going to name any of these by name, but I will tell you that if you look around at some of the most successful people in business, they have finance and business degrees. They have financially focused degrees, business degrees, a mixture of some of those. I have a political science degree. It's probably on the fringes of being one of those useful and not useful. For the job that I do, it taught me a lot of amazing things that I need every day in dealing with people and in public perception and things like that. It was great. I also intended to go to law school and I never made it there. I never went down that path. So, I talk about those things, skilled trades, getting degrees that will help you in your work. But I think more than that, for the person that doesn't need an education at this point, or perhaps they already have an education, and if you've been in the military for a number of years and took advantage of some of those educational opportunities, understand this, that the unemployment rate right now is higher than it's been in a decade. We experienced this in 2008, 2009 during the financial downturn or the economic recession. A lot of people had to leave their jobs. They were forced out of their jobs. Their jobs were simply eliminated. If you look at, I'll give you an example, like the airlines right now are decimated. People have largely stopped traveling. The airlines have laid people off or furloughed them, rather. They've tried to retain as many people as they can. But now we're in this weird spot where there's some recovery coming, and the economists are looking at this and saying mid-year that there's going to be some major recovery in the economy. We're seeing it already. Like Texas and Florida are open. They're open. Open for business. Offices are open. People are going to go back to work. The vaccines are out. People are feeling a little safer. But understand this, that because so many people were displaced, the recruiters and hiring managers inside of corporate America are buried. They have 3 ways that candidates are reaching them right now: via email, via applicant tracking systems like application systems, and through LinkedIn. And I'm an example of this. I have so many people that are sitting in my inbox that I simply cannot get to at this moment because I have to, I have my day-to-day routine and things that we're working on in the job, but new candidates knocking on the door every single day that I simply can't get back to on a very efficient basis. And so I have a lot of candidates that will check in and say, "Hey, I sent you an email the other day." You did. I'm just not there yet. Understand that networking is still going to be your number one resource for figuring out where you go next. But it's an interesting time because the world kind of came apart at the seams over the last 12 months.
It did.
And companies are in this place where they have to make this decision. Like, do they start hiring people to account for this recovery that's coming mid-year? Do they start hiring them right now? And if they do, let's say I am company A and I'm going to invest, $5 million in hiring X amount of new people. Well, what happens if that recovery doesn't happen the way we thought it was? Now I've got all these people that I have to furlough or lay off or fire or whatever. Or do they wait until the mid-year recovery actually happens and then start hiring, which will cause a scramble for the hiring managers and recruiters?
Yeah, everybody's scrambling. Companies are fighting over this, not calling people scraps, but they're like wild animals fighting over scraps. They're all chasing the same small group of individuals that are left out there.
Yeah.
I know personally where I'm at, we are currently trying to be ahead of it. We are currently searching and hiring individuals. I do know that on military.com they have something called the Military Skills Translator. It's not what you would hope and what you would think, like where you plug your MOS in. It asks for your branch of service and then your MOS, and then it gives you a listing of jobs that are available that they would recommend for people that were in that MOS. It would be nice if there was something that would, hey, if you were in this job title, these are some descriptors, some words you might be able to throw on resumes and use during interviews to describe how your service is going to translate to the civilian sector and whatever jobs you are pursuing. But it's also not a bad resource. Matt, you brought up the skills trade, especially for us, 1371. Just out of curiosity, I've done this before. If you plug that in, United States Marines, 1371's the MOS, it's going to pull a list, and almost 98% of that is construction-based jobs.
Right.
From skilled, just the laborer position to heavy equipment to project management, things of that nature, but it's almost all construction-based. But, depending on what your MOS is, that might throw some things out there that you are interested in.
I was supposed to be a bricklayer. And I'm not, I'm not digging on anybody's professions. There are tons of those jobs out there. There are construction jobs, and those are great options for people. I'm in a couple of neighborhood groups on Facebook, to my local community, and I see people asking on there all day long, "Hey, I'm looking for a new job. Who's hiring? I need $10 an hour. I need $12 an hour." And that's my response. Everybody's hiring. Yeah. The companies out here are hiring. If you need $12 an hour, I'll name a few. Cintas down the street is hiring people at depending on what kind of job you want, it's anywhere from $12 to $25 an hour, depending on whatever type of role you're looking for. Amazon is a massive organization that continues to grow and continues to have opportunities. The restaurant business took a little bit of a hit, but a lot of your staple restaurants, your fast food organizations, they're still hiring. There are just a number of different jobs, and people they have to use these resources to, like LinkedIn and Indeed is another great resource to go in and kind of tag up on your job search. But there are jobs out there. One of the challenges, and again, we saw this in 2008, 2009, and we're seeing it again, and we're going to see it again, is the people that have $100,000 a year job and they got displaced, and now they're scrambling to get their hands on anything. And so that person who was wildly competitive is now even more competitive for a $65,000 a year job. So the person that would typically take that $65,000 a year job, depending on the job, obviously, depending on the skill set, is now bumped down because this person who has more experience is willing to step down and take that job. It's a weird time. It displaces a lot of people. Cutting checks from the government doesn't help any of this. Yeah. It doesn't get people back to where they need to be. And I'm not, I'm in full support of the recovery efforts or the efforts to give people a little bit of spending cash to stimulate the economy, but it doesn't get people back into the jobs that they lost 6, 8 months ago, 12 months ago.
Yeah. It's a short-term answer for a long-term, problem. Is really what it is. The objective is to get people back into, good paying jobs with potential for advancement and, bettering themselves and their careers and their families. That's what's truly going to stimulate the economy. And like you said, you get that $100,000 a year person taking this $65,000, $70,000 a year job. Now that individual that's 65, 70 is going to settle for something in the 45s, 40 range, and it's going to go on down the line. Right. And I see something very similar, hey, looking for a job, need $17 an hour. Well, guess what? There's a a local convenience store branch in Pennsylvania called Sheets. They hire supervisors at $18 an hour. The signs are
Right.
on the doors when you walk into their facilities. Right there, they're constantly hiring. If that's all you're looking for, then there you go. I don't know.
And what this all causes will be sort of a chain reaction down the road. The person who took a step down to pay their bills during all of this, once they find something else, they're out. Once they get the opportunity that was their previous opportunity, they're out. Yeah. And then so a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you see everybody scaling back up. And then, you saw people like in our own generation, this is the second economic downturn we've experienced artificially or naturally. And I say artificially because a lot of what happened during COVID was due to policy, not necessarily due to a realistic economic downturn. Yeah. The economy did not dip. We forced it to dip. And I know that's up for debate. I don't want to go into that, but this is what we have to do is recover from it. And we have to get people back into these opportunities so that they, you had, again, 10, 12 years ago, you had people who were displaced from their homes because they simply could not afford to pay their bills anymore. So we want to avoid that. But, we were talking about this in the beginning. Realistic expectations. If you're leaving the armed forces or if you are looking for your next opportunity, and I've talked to a lot of people, I've mentored a lot of people coming out of the military, you will get paid a higher rate when you have experience in that industry. So it doesn't matter if in the military while you're stationed in Hawaii, your total comp with BAH and everything is $100,000 a year. You're not going to be able to step into as a E6 or as an O3. You're not going to be able to step into industry in some cases making that same amount unless you have years of experience, because in industry, in XYZ industry, people make that amount after 5 or 10 years of experience in that industry, in that job specific. So there's this understanding of realistic expectations, and that is that there are people inside of company A, B, C competing for that $100,000 a year job already, and that person's already been in that company or in that job or in that industry selling widgets or whatever they're doing for 5-10 years, and they're competitive for that job. Whereas although you've had operational experience, and in some cases you can come out of the military and go plug into a job that pays you well, but in most cases that company or those companies will require you to have a little bit of or a few years of operational experience inside of that company, inside of that job before you get to that space.
Yeah, you see it in job listings all the time. Need 5 years experience, or education requirements, 5 years experience in tech, in related field.
Right.
Yeah, Matt, you brought this up about how coming out of the service, you might be skilled enough to take this job, but there's also been 5 or 6 individuals that have also been eyeing this opportunity up for the past couple of years. They've been in this company, and realistically, you get paid for the problems you can solve.
Right.
The solutions you can present.
Right.
And that's where you're going to find the snags, is you coming directly out of the service probably don't have the answers they're looking for, hey, if this happens, what do we do? Versus those 5 or 6 other people that have been in similar roles inside this company have probably come across these, or at least know someone inside that company that's come across it, where they can reach out and, hey, I know this happened to you. What do we do? And they have those resources and that, that knowledge base. And that's just something you got to do. You don't want to take necessarily the first thing that comes along.
Right.
But you want to also eventually settle for something that has a growth potential to it. Get in the door, hustle your butt off, and just soak up as much as you possibly can. And that way, when that true opportunity comes along that you do want, you now have that knowledge base as well, those reference points to say, hey, I know that when X, Y, or Z happens, I can reach back, grab this information, bring it to the forefront, and we can go on from there. I can solve these problems. That's how you get paid.
Well, and something you said was don't take the first thing that comes along, but I'd recommend this: take every interview that comes along.
Yes.
And so even if you want to go work on aircraft at Delta, go take the interview at McDonald's. I've had so many people say, hey, I'm not interested in this job that you're offering me, or this interview that you're offering me on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in that job. I want to go be a doctor. Fair enough. But at some point in time, you're going to have to sit down and interview with somebody.
Yeah.
And if you have not sat through a board interview or a group interview or a virtual interview, or you have not interviewed at all, I can't tell you how many people I talk to that are just very awkward in their interviewing skills and are not able to really let me know what they want out of life or what they've done in the military, what they've done in their career, et cetera, because they've simply not practiced having that conversation. And that is more destructive than virtually anything else. You can network all you want and you can have the best resume in the world, but if you get into an interview and you blow it, that's you're going to be tripping over yourself for quite some time. So interview for everything, connect with everybody. I always say that there's 3 rules of your post-military or career search, even if it's not post-military. Network. Start talking to as many people as you can talk to. And get advice from those people, get mentorship from those people, seek mentorship, seek advisory, and ask what you can do next. And understand that you might apply to the same job 5 or 6 times. You might apply to the same company 10 times, and they might reject you 9 out of 10 times. But you don't say, well, they rejected me once, now I'm going to walk away. I've seen this too. I see candidates putting all their eggs in one basket. They're interviewing for one job, and they are very intent on getting that job. And then when they don't get it, they have no plan B. They didn't interview with anybody else. They weren't looking at anything else, other jobs, anything. One other note that I'll make here for anybody transitioning out of the military, and I talked to a lot of candidates who have never heard of this, SkillBridge. Mm-hmm. SkillBridge and Hiring Our Heroes fellowships, infinitely valuable. These are things that we should have been doing for 100 years in the military. They offer you the ability to go intern or work in a skills training program inside of a company while you're still getting paid by the Department of Defense. And you can come into virtually any company that is partnering with this. So a lot of your large companies are doing this, but it is a great opportunity to test drive a company. And the intention, at least where I am running this program, the intention is that I plug you into a full-time role after that internship. So I'm trying to cram that needed industry experience into your head in 3 to 5 or 6 months or whatever, however much time I have you. I'm trying to cram 2 years of experience into your head so that at the end of your internship or fellowship, you now have industry experience that you can put on your resume and say, I know enough about this job to be dangerous. And then you're competitive for a higher paying job inside of an organization, which is arguably the number one challenge for a lot of people. It's not getting a job or getting the job. It's getting your foot in the door in the first place. Mm-hmm. Get in the door. It's not this job you want. It's the next one. Get in the door, prove yourself, work your way up the ladder, then become the CEO. Mm-hmm. Can't start as a CEO.
Yeah. Unless you're going to start a bookstore out of your house on a computer and
right. Then you can become the CEO, or
it's a whole different thing. But that goes back. It's you're not coming out of the military. You might not have that that technical knowledge of that specific job that they're looking for to hire you. Something like SkillBridge gets you in the door. You have those 6 months to learn at least the base of those skills and those traits that they're looking for. And then when it comes time after those 6 months, it just so happens this job you really would like inside that company is available. Guess what? You are now right there with those other 5 or 6 candidates that are going to put in and say, hey, I've been here for these past 6 months doing this internship. Here's what I've done in these 6 months. And I'm just starting out. Give me this opportunity. I can run with this and get even better. So.
And I'll tell you that, having been a recruiter much of my career, I used to recruit salespeople and you name it, anything else. Recruiters look at things very black and white. They look at a resume for 8 seconds and they determine in that 8 seconds whether or not you're going to be a fit for that job. Mm-hmm. So there's two pieces of advice there. One, don't try to fudge it. Don't try to fudge. You're like, yes, I've got all this operational experience. I'm perfect for this job, because they're gonna see right through it, or they're just not going to look at it long enough to find that. But secondarily, without fudging, without lying, look at the job description and match your resume to what that job description is asking. If you have that experience, try to tweak the language to look as much like that job description as you can, because then the recruiter looks at that and goes, oh my gosh, this is the job description. Again, without fudging. You don't want to get on the phone and they're like, it says here that you trained 18 elephants. And you're like, actually, I have no elephant experience, but your job description had that on that, so I lied. It doesn't work that way. I trained a dog once. Right. I have a pet rat. But that is another piece that I see a resume that comes through, and the headline of it is like, I'm looking for a job at Boeing. And I'm like, I'm not Boeing. You didn't customize your resume to me. And now you're talking about taking apart FA-18 Super Hornets, and that's not what we do here. And so I can't. But if you were to take that and sort of formulate that you've managed aviation facilities in the Navy, for example, then that's absolutely relevant. Let's talk.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Hey, great discussion today, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. To all the listeners, viewers, appreciate you guys as well. Thank you very much. You can find us on all the major social media platforms. Check us out there. Subscribe, like, follow, all those good things. You can also find us on all major podcast platforms. Again, like, follow, subscribe. Give us ratings, reviews. That helps us get into the eyes and ear holes of other listeners that we would love to talk to and help. If you're interested and have a fun story you'd like to talk to us about, reach out to us. Let us know about your story. We'll interact a little bit, and maybe you could end up here on the show with us. That's about it. Matt, anything else before we go?
Nothing else. We're moving along, and I look forward to having more of these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. We got the next couple of weeks are all booked out, ready to go. Got some good guests lined up, so we look forward to those. Until next time, we'll be right back here on